Ni hao. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm Austin Devaney. I'm hoping I can tell you a little about lithium salts, my background, and the transition to automotive activities in the lithium ion space. I've been in the lithium ion battery business for 12 years, all in lithium, obviously. Started with a company called Foot, and then we changed our names to Rockwood Lithium, and then ultimately were acquired and became Albemarle. I joined Piedmont a little less than 2 years ago, and am responsible for all of our commercial activities. I'll talk to you a little bit about who Piedmont is. I'll tell you a little about the North American and United States battery space, then talk a little bit about automotive space. But again, thank you for the time today. Hopefully I've provided a little bit of information that's valuable. And if you have any questions, we'll get an opportunity for you to send me some emails at the end. So let me try sharing my screen right now. So Piedmont, bunch of small words there, but really we're trying to build North America's leading source of lithium hydroxide and do it in a sustainable manner. Uh, we were a company that was founded in 2016. We were originally an Australian company. Our flagship Carolina Lithium project is based here in North Carolina, where nearly all of the Western world's lithium was produced from the early 1950s up until the 1990s. We have an integrated project where we will mine lithium spodumene here and then have a conversion facility on site as well. One of the unique attributes of our facility is that integration, because there's very few facilities anywhere in the world that operate a complete end-to-end extraction to conversion to a final product ready to go to a cathode maker. At Piedmont, we've been around since 2016, acquiring land. But in the past 2 years, we've made a couple of interesting investments. We've acquired a portion of Sayona in Canada, and in conjunction with Sayona, we were successful in acquiring the North American Lithium Assets, a formerly operating spodumene facility with a small lithium salts facility associated with it. And then a couple of months ago, we also acquired an interest in Iron Ridge Resources, which has changed its name to Atlantic Lithium. We have a deposit in Ghana in Western Africa where we will mine spodumene there as well and ship that to a conversion facility, most likely in the United States. Kind of a picture of who our leadership team is here at Piedmont. You'll see me in the middle. Maybe you know a couple of these other people, but really built out a good team over the past 2 years to bring our project forward and become a significant producer of lithium hydroxide. When you look at where the EV industry is, this is kind of the unwritten information that people don't understand, is the constraint that will be there because of materials. So the gray bar is where demand would be without any constraints. The blue bar is what materials will do to those constraints. So the unavailability of lithium, nickel, cobalt, whatever it might be, will constrain light duty transport vehicles, passenger vehicles. And that's the thing you see there in the middle part of this graph, is how dramatic that material shortage will be. I think the other thing I'd point out to you on this slide is over on the far right-hand side. We're going to almost 60 million vehicles, which is more than half of the electric vehicle fleet being electrified, being EVs. This is information that came from Battery Metal Review and Westbeck. I think pretty interesting to note how significant the shortage of materials will be. Let's talk a few minutes about United States, kind of what's taking place there. You can see there are all kinds of companies who are building plants to produce lithium-ion battery cells. Most of those are in the eastern United States. But really the interesting part of this page is over on the right-hand side. You'll see there's over 500,000 tons per year of demand for lithium hydroxide. That's equivalent of about 550,000, 550 gigawatt hours of battery cell demand. It's a whole host of companies building that. Nowhere near as significant as what's taking place in China today with the cells that are being built, cell plants that are being built there, but still significant for the United States when you consider we hardly had any capacity just as recently as 4 or 5 years ago. Really, the significant piece here is over the bottom right. You'll see there's a number of projects to bring lithium capacities online, including our two projects, but it still pales in comparison to what the demand is. So only about 25% of the potential demand could be met from localized resources. If you see the cell plants here, you'll recognize some of the names and companies that are listed here in the cell capacities. What I wanted to point out to you is what I'm going to do now. So this is the announced lithium capacities, and you can see it steps up pretty big in 2025. Significant portion could be supplied from domestic resources. But the real challenge there is if you listen to what some of the analysts have described and the delays that are always present in these resource projects, really the shortfall in 2025 will be very difficult to manage. There will be probably less than 10% of the available lithium to supply. Now, what does that mean for the rest of the world? How do you compete against that? I'll go through in the next slide. So you'll see here, China's the dominant cell producer, has been, probably will be. This is a 2025 forecast of the amount of cells that'll be produced in the world, with China dominating almost 3/4 of that. Processing occurs in China, but really when you get over on the far right-hand side, you'll see the resources. And so for every country, every region of the world, that shortfall in resources will create a competition. There will be competition for resources everywhere. So it's incumbent for all countries to try to develop resources, because Australia will not be able to supply all of the world's resources. Now let's talk a little bit about evolution of the battery. So you'll see here a graph showing that energy densities have tripled since 2010. And I think you can see the different chemistries there. I like to point out kind of what a cell has done. So early cells were just cylindrical 18650s. We went to prismatic cells, then there were pouch cells. Then you went to packs. The top right picture is one of a Tesla cell. It's got a bunch of cells there aligned in a series to create a pack. The bottom right picture is a General Motors chassis with their Ultium cell. And so you can see now you've had this evolution from small cylindrical cells all the way up to these more robust, larger packs and modules that are doing that. And I think what to me is the fascinating part is kind of where we came from almost 30 years ago. Sony camcorder was the original lithium-ion battery application. It was introduced in 1992. Relatively small energy density at only 80 watt-hours per kg. But really, I think the important piece to note here is that bottom line. Really, you didn't expect your battery to last a long time. It only lasted 2 years, maybe 3 if you were good and treated it well. The advent of cell phones, with the landmark introduction of the Apple iPhone in 2007, now you've had your energy density double. But you still, with the features that were introduced in those over time, you really didn't have as big a concern of how long your phone lasted, or how long the battery lasted specifically. So if it failed, you'd get a new device, you'd get a new battery. E-bikes were introduced a couple years after that. Small increase in energy density, but now you're starting to get more concerned about life. Uh, the value of that e-bike was much more than a Sony camcorder or an Apple iPhone upon introduction. As we've gone to more transportation segments, specifically the Tesla Model 3 and other vehicles, your energy density continues to climb, but now you want that battery to last a much longer time. You want it to last 10, 15, 20 years, essentially the life of the vehicle. That puts a whole different category of requirements around quality. And with next gen batteries, you're talking about another 40% increase in energy density and at least a 15-year life. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on the industry to create what I call automotive grade products. So when you're talking about quality, meeting those lifetimes and things, it's really incumbent that you meet the automotive quality programs. They've been known for years how rigorous a process it is. I tend to think of these three processes or short abbreviations as the keys to what's taking place in the automotive space. PPAP, so a production part approval process. You have to submit a part early in its design so that automakers can approve it. That shows that your quality processes are in place and that you're going to repeat the same part one after another. Part submission warrant is similar in that it's a small piece, but that's to make sure that it actually meets the requirements, not that it's consistent from one to one. Probably the next most important program for in the automotive space is management of change. Any of you who are familiar with the automotive space will recognize this, and that's a super important piece of what automotive qualities are. So you have to confirm that if you're making any change in your process, raw materials, equipment, people, processes, anything that you're doing receives approval down the supply chain all the way to the final end user, because having a consistent and quality product is super important. I'll tell you why in the next slide. Because of warranties. Warranties are super, super important for the automotive people. In many cases, there are either government or commercial regulations that push how long a battery should last. If you recall back, we had consumer electronics that were lasting, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years. Now we're talking about automotive batteries that are going to have to last 15, 20 years. And that guarantee is typically provided by the cell maker. That's a risk, a monetary risk that cell makers are taking. So they want to push the quality standards backwards to all of their suppliers, make sure that nothing changes in the development of those batteries and the delivery of those batteries that puts their warranty at risk. So a delivery spec, how much materials in a bag, what type of equipment was used, and no foreign matter in there. Many of you probably heard about magnetic metal impurities. It's those things that are the quality parameters that all of the supply chain wants to manage so that they can minimize their risk, and eliminate warranty failures, because that's a big monetary penalty to them. Thank you for listening to me today. I hope I've been informative. I appreciate the uh, conference organizers for having me. If anyone has any questions, feel free to email me. My email address is right here. I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope you have a great day and a good conference. Thank you. Bye bye.